So this is Adventure of a Lifetime by My Whole Life. I'm here live with Command Sergeant Major retired Tom Eagan. We're going to hang out for a little bit, talk to y'all as we get started, listen to a little bit of Adventure of a Lifetime, show you guys and gals a few things. This is our donor list. These are the folks that are, helping us get these stories out, right? It's very interesting to think about all the stories that have been told. Our master rated donors: Williams, Jackman, Calderon, Hackey, Fernandez, Evans, Cobos, Wino, Ridgway, Barrow. Thank you so much. Our senior rated donors: Newton, Diaz, Shrum, Kirkendall, Allen, Ross. Thank you. I want to share with you guys something. Look, if you want to donate to the show right here, you can click on that link. I'm going to put it out in the chat. That link right there will, send money to Joe and I's account, and we appreciate it very much, And it dings us here on the show. We get to see it. It's kind of an interaction. If you like our stream, it tells us about it. And so we appreciate that very much. If you have any interest at all in merchandise, I want to share with you our new online store. You can go to our new online store and purchase t-shirts and hoodies, former force.myshopify.com. So go check it out. We're very appreciative of those. When you buy a shirt, a shirt costs a lot of money, okay? But you're giving us a donation. That's what it's all about. And if there's a shirt out there that's too expensive, you can't purchase it, then let me know. We'll find a way to get you a shirt for a less expensive of a price, okay? We really appreciate everybody, so thanks for being here with us. We're going to be hanging out here with Command Sergeant Major Thomas Eagan, and I'm going to put him up here so everybody can see and hear him on the screen. Thanks for hanging out with us, Sergeant Major. I really appreciate it. I really, really appreciate it. Where are you from?
I'm from a small town in Indiana called Washington, Indiana.
Washington.
7,000 people.
Oh, really? That's tiny.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's tiny. What was it? Was it like out in the country? Was there neighborhoods? Or tell me about, like, as a kid, were you roaming the streets, or were you running through a cotton field, or?
A little bit of everything. As a kid, I kind of moved around a lot. Started out there in Indiana and Bloomington, and then later moved to Orlando, Florida for a while, and then came back to Indiana in I guess right there around 5th, 6th grade, and was living in a little small place called Shoals, Indiana, that's known for the Jug Rock, and then moved down the road about 30 minutes to another town, and then finally end up in Washington about another 30 minutes down the road from the same area. And yeah, there's some cornfields and hog farms, and we used to corn people with, you take the corn off the cob there and throw it at them as they drive by and stuff like that. So yeah, there's a lot of country stuff.
Were you are you a country boy? Are you a city boy? Are you I don't know. I mean, tell me about that.
I think I'm a little bit more country than I am city, but got spoiled living around the military. So
right.
Yeah, and now living in San Antonio, it's so damn big here that looking for a place to go back and find a place in the country now.
You described moving around different places and things. Was all that early on, or did you move a lot growing up as a kid?
Well, I guess it was more event driven. My father, when I was in Indiana, he was one of the first people that printed a colored newspaper there in Indiana. And then he got a new job in Florida, but later he was arrested for trafficking drugs.
Oh, no.
Yeah, I got put in jail for a significant amount of time, and so then my mom and I moved back to Indiana, and that was kind of driving us moving around there a little bit. So
I mean, I gotta ask, how old were you when your dad was caught, doing drugs and or doing the selling drugs? And how do I mean, you gotta. Can I explore that a little bit? Tell me about that.
yeah, so I was in third grade, and they came and got me out of school and took me to the courthouse to say goodbye to my dad that he had been arrested. Yeah, and that was the whole trial, all that was going on. Never knew anything about it. And, seen him once right before I left Florida to go back to Indiana, and then didn't see him again until I was graduated high school, actually. So he had just got out of prison right before I graduated high school. So I seen him for a couple of days then, and then very significant. And the last time I saw him was I got a phone call that he was on his deathbed, and they needed me to make the decision to pull the plug or not.
Oh
So
wow.
yeah, so it was one of those things. I never wanted that the way it to happen, but it played out that way. Um, and it actually gave me, I think, a little bit more drive to get out of the situations that I've been brought up in. So
So did you grow up privileged or poor or scrambling around for every little thing you had, or were you poor and didn't know it?
um, so definitely up until my father was around, definitely probably living more of a privileged lifestyle. Lived there in Orlando in between two lakes, real nice backyard, bigger than a football field. So, and then once he went to prison, it all kind of went downhill from there. Food stamps, school paying for lunches, school buying shoes, glasses for me to play sports. I think the sports kept me off the streets and kept me going. So,
I bet. I bet. So, what sports were you interested in?
so let's see. Played football, wrestled, basketball, track. Actually, used to be able to run many years ago. I don't think there's very many people around that remembers that. I used to be able to run when I was young. So,
You used to be
so
a
that was
runner, huh?
yeah. I used to be. Now I kind of just like I don't know, look like a guy running around the corner there. It's actually walking. So
what what was it like in high school? What kind of things what interested you in high school? Like I found myself interested in a lot of nothing in high school. What did you find yourself interested in?
pretty much the same thing. You thought you was interested in something, but you really wasn't.
Right.
Being from the area I was from, cars and a lot of drinking, and so I really had no clue where I was going, um, and so high school awards banquet. That year, I was leading defensive player, but didn't get the leading defensive player award of the year. And one of the coaches came off the stage and said, "That's what happens when you live in HUD housing." And the kid that won the award, his dad owned half the city. So, uh,
Ouch. Ouch.
yeah, so that was an eye-opening event for me. And
Yeah.
I was told for a long time I wasn't smart enough to go to college. And so, the Army recruiter showed up in school the last week of football season, my senior year. And next day after the game, I was at the MEP stations down in Louisiana,
Amen.
not Louisiana,
Amen.
Louisville, Kentucky. So we lived so close. Louisville, Kentucky was the closest MEPs.
Amen. So, like, tell me about going into the MEPS. Do you remember that day and all the stuff that went along with the ASVAB and choosing your job and all that stuff?
Yeah, it was interesting. Of course, I had both of my ankles taped. They were shaved. Back then we didn't have all the high speed stuff. They sprayed the sticky stuff and then put the tape over it. So both my ankles were shaved, and you're there and your Tony's walking around doing a duck walk in front of a bunch of people and taking a urinalysis, and girls walking by, and you're like, what the hell's going on here? But and then right before lunch, the guys came out and said, well, you're not no rocket scientist, but you're a little bit smarter than these guys, so we're going to go ahead and finish you before we go to lunch. And I was like, Okay. So then I ended up in Hawk. So I was like, oh, okay.
So what year was it did you came into Hawk?
So it was 85. I graduated high school early 85, May 85, and then shipped in August of 85.
Oh wow, Hawker!
Yeah, I'm an old
Wow.
Hawker.
So you went to Fort Bliss and up on Logan Heights and all that jazz.
Yeah, Bush, Sewells were my drill sergeants. Smalls was my drill sergeant. Bobby Brown came through, I think, right after that. Steve Rogers. Yeah, so there was some dudes up there on the hill that
Oh
I think,
yeah.
matter of fact, Bush was the commandant at the NCO Academy when I went through ANOC again.
Oh wow. Oh wow. Isn't it great to think about some of the, I mean, I don't know. I consider you an icon in the branch. It's really cool. Yeah, and I'm serious. I'm serious. It's especially
Little
when
rookie
when
bastard.
your when your name's on the wall for so long in so many places, and you get seen around, and you're like in my era. If you're not in my era, we're all unknown, right? I
Yeah,
mean, come
yeah,
on, right, right. But
yeah,
but if you look at the group, which actually is a fairly small group of us, I mean, you are a legend, and it's really cool to see. What was Private Egan like? Did you do good in basic and stuff?
yeah. So basic was for me was that was I was already in pretty decent shape, and it was pretty easy physically for me. Uh, but it was what I was that you asked me what I was interested in. That's what got my attention was basic. Back then we grew up playing. We didn't play the BS games that now everybody, the shooters and everything, first person, but playing Army when you're growing up and everything. So, um, it brought out in me that drive to excel, and so I enjoyed it. Actually, it was. Now there was some times I was like, I don't know if I'm gonna make it through this, but
Yeah, I felt the same way. I found it fairly easy. They gave us a book and it had step one, step two, step three, step four. And if I stood there and I did exactly what they said and I memorized the step for that little stuff and I did it when they said and I shut up otherwise, I did
yeah,
pretty good.
yeah, fly underneath the radar. Yeah,
The little smart book. Remember the smart books back then?
we didn't have them.
Oh, you didn't have no smart book? Oh,
No.
you were pre-smart. You were still black boots army. You were still running in boots, right?
Right on the edge. We had the banana PT suits.
We
Yeah,
did
you
too.
remember
We
those
did
banana?
too.
Yeah,
Yeah. But we
yeah,
didn't have to run in boots. We had banana suits with we brought our own PT shoes with us, our own running shoes to basic training. So, yeah. So tell me about being a hawker. Were you a I mean, I don't even know that much about a hawk. Was there launcher dogs and firing crews still kind of
yeah,
guys?
yeah. Uprange, downrange, still kind of same pissing contest you see in Patriot. Same thing there. You
Tell
know.
me, tell me what your part of it was.
So I was uprange. I worked in I don't even remember what the hell it's called anymore. The command post there with kind of a TCA TCO row.
Right, right,
Uh, we had the BCP and the PCP, so battery command post and platoon. Um, and I was in the jump platoon, is what they called it. Just the platoon leader and the platoon sergeant went out away from the main base, and you was kind of on your own and everything. So, um, you start out with the smaller radar, and then go to the high power, and then you move into the van, and you pull shifts inside the van, watching the scope just like everybody else. I got Doppler hearing. That's why my hearing's jacked up. I wear hearing aids now because listen to radar so much.
right,
Yeah,
right.
but I'm probably not wearing hearing aids. I mean, hearing protection. When we used to go to the range, when I first came in, my first unit there in Hawk, all the NCOs were Vietnam vets, and that was a shock working around those type guys. Um, Still smoked in the buildings and everything, so a lot of old bad habits. Do a post run and run down to the parade field there in Fort Bliss, and they'd have the Coors and Budweiser trailers out, and everybody on post would be there having a beer after a post run. So, um, but it was interesting. Hawk had a different mentality than kind of had the shorehead mentality versus the high mentality there. So, and I'm telling you, after you hump those cables or throw them in the back of a deuce and a half or a 5 ton, uh, makes you a little bit different person. So,
I totally agree that there's I always noticed a difference between somebody that said they were a hawker and somebody that said they were patriot. It was there's a little bit more of that ruffian, get it done on my own, haul a heavy cable kind of thing. Now the patriot guys and gals, they hump their cables. Don't get me wrong. I'm not saying
yeah,
that at
yeah,
all, but it seemed to be an attitude more of, if you were patriot, like, and hawkers were more like, hey, you should watch out for this over here, this is crazy, that
yeah.
hawkers were more adept at what was going on tactically.
Yeah. So, and I guess what I noticed in my beginning, I guess when I was a first sergeant, I had issues with some of this. As a platoon sergeant in Hawk, we were doing what first sergeants and Patriot were doing. We was running chow and we was doing some other stuff. We were doing the ration runs or the repair runs and all that kind of stuff. Where you get into Patriot and it seems like your first sergeants were out there going to pick up chow and coming back. And I'm like, hey, I did this stuff as a staff sergeant. I'm not going to do it as a first sergeant. So, and it's interesting you bring up about the whole hula versus. I came over to the Patriot and I was a section chief, and we went out to the field. Um, and of course, running cables in Hawk, you hump. And after the field problem, the platoon sergeant pulled me into to his office and said, "Hey, you're gonna have to chill out a little bit. You're gonna run somebody in the dirt." And I'm like, "What are you talking about?" He's like, "You're out there running your guys in your section on these cables, like that's what I've done for the last 10, 15 years. So yeah, so it was an interesting transition there for a while.
Yeah, so coming into new units and new places and new MOSs, it's interesting always to see how it all goes together. Do you remember becoming a sergeant?
Yeah, yeah.
Tell me about that.
um so I had literally missed, well, because in Hawk, it was towards the end when things were starting to kind of slow down. um and I had actually went to aerosol school there at Fort Hood. I was part of 31st Brigade that moved from Fort Bliss to Fort Hood underneath the Kurtz era. Um, John Rossi was my battery commander with Tim McCain. Uh,
Wow.
yeah, so I went to aerosol school to get corporal. I was already a corporal, but I was trying to make points. And then, I lost like 10 pounds in aerosol school there at Fort Hood because it was like, oh, this place is going to be the hardest school, Third Corps armor guys, and just the craziness of Fort Hood. It still ain't changed, it seems. Um, and so I went through that, and a couple of months later, like January, I made cutoff scores. I was like, I mean, damn, I was pretty pissed off. I went through all that to get there, and then 2 months later, I still made it after I graduated. So
you only wanted to do enough to get promoted. You didn't want to actually go to get to school, huh?
yeah, yeah,
I love
yeah,
it. I love it. Hey, look, I get it, man. Some of it, you're at different times in your life, and you're at different places, and your thought processes. Looking back on it, it's like, man, of course I'm glad I got my air assault wings. I'm glad I went through all that. But at the time, it's like, I could
yeah,
have got promoted without it.
yeah. And then what was I thinking to put myself through? But I still to this day, I love rappelling. So we was talking about, you watch all the shows and everything else. And one is the one they've got going now after Survivor. The actors and everybody, they was rappelling down the rock, and I'm like, what's the big deal, So it's something that the adrenaline rush. That's kind of adrenaline junkie is what I've become over the years. So
Oh, really? Oh,
yeah,
really? So tell me, like, I see you've done like the Spartan race or I'm not sure what it is, but you've done one of those things like 17 times or something.
yeah. So I started late, and I wished it was that many times. It wasn't that many. Um, so I guess the first time I ran a Spartan race, I was 48, and I was in my 50s when I ran my last one. Still in my 50s, but and after I retired, I didn't have nothing to do but work out and run. So I literally, because I didn't do anything for like 4 years, I just went back to work. During when everybody was locked down, I decided to go back to work, or I actually had to go into an office. But so I got in pretty good shape, probably pre-marriage shape. So I
Yeah, that's
kind of like the
awesome.
extreme stuff of that. But
Yeah, hey, Craig Evans is on here with us. He says, "Good to see you, Sergeant Major, first of fires." So, yeah, thanks for hanging out with
Craig,
us,
I haven't
Craig.
talked to him in forever.
Yeah, man, he's one of our master rated donors, and he's a big supporter of the show. Hey, probably haven't seen this. Here's a slideshow I did for us. You want to watch?
Sure, yeah,
Yeah, let's check it out. Is it all right?
yeah. So far, love that place.
Is it alright if I stay today? Is it alright if I stay today? Take my time, far behind, leave my pride. Oh, is it alright if I stay? Is it alright if we just stay today? Is it alright? 'Cause I wish we could just stay. Take our time, far behind, leave our pride. Oh, is it alright if we stay? Is it alright if I decide but change my mind? Is that okay? Is it alright if I don't wanna feel obliged in any way? Is it alright if I waste my time and not?
There we are. We're here with Command Sergeant Major Tom Eagan. Thanks, Sergeant Major, for hanging out with me. I really appreciate it. I hope you enjoyed the slideshow that we put together for you. I obviously stole all your Facebook pictures. That's like every picture you had on Facebook, basically.
Yeah, you don't see me very much on Facebook. I was like, Joe said I was going to get something about pictures or something. I was like, man, they never sent me things. So I was like, but I don't get on Facebook very much. The stupidity that goes across there sometimes. I'm just better off not looking at it and going on. So
I get it. I get it. And so that's one of the things that one of the things that we're dealing with is how best to deal with things like that, right? There's a lot of our folks that don't have a lot of pictures, and so sometimes we ask them to send us pictures and different things. What I've found, honestly, when I ask people to send pictures, I feel like I'm imposing on them almost. And it's tough to get them sometimes to send me quality pictures that are scanned or taken, and so if I can get something adequate, I try to grab it and just use what I can get, and anyway, that's not about this or that. But hey, I sure do appreciate you hanging out with me, and I appreciate you letting me steal those pictures. Tell me about physical stuff. You said you were a football athlete. You're doing the Spartan race. You're in great shape. Is there something that's a secret?
Um, so 2012, I came home one night for dinner. I was out in the Space Brigade, and my wife had been working in the Veterans Trauma Court, and so she was getting a lot of stuff on PTSD and stuff like that. So she she had put a PowerPoint presentation at the dinner table, and so that was a little bit eye opening for me. And then when I was there in 2014, there at 30th, my last assignment, I was starting to have a lot of memory issues. And so I went in, of course, they did a bunch of TBI tests on me. And then it came out that, they diagnosed me with anxiety and depression that was compounded with chronic pain and lack of sleep. And so, my body was just tearing itself up. But the only way that I could kind of keep the anxiety at bay was for me to work out. And, my size was a huge factor in my career for the late years, which, oh, by the way, I'm a runt of my family. Most Eagans are like 6'6", 250 plus pounds, and I'm the runt. So, that's so that was kind of a struggle. But between the anxiety and depression taking its toll, my health did struggle. So the only way I could kind of deal with it was to get out and do the Spartan races or something like that. And then there, when I got to 30th, one of the things that I noticed kind of with some other ones, and I think Joe will tell you this, that I used to, when I do my quarterly NCO runs, we didn't run down the damn street with the collars and everybody there. Let's go out into the training areas and run some trails. And so that's kind of what I did the last 2 years of my career. I wish I would have done that. When I was more of a first sergeant, we'd go out at Biggs at the desert and run, or up at the canyon and run. But when you're in the schoolhouse, it's a little bit harder too. But so just doing different things like that kept me probably mentally charged where I could do that. So
take a moment and brag on your family for me a little bit. Who is it that prays for you and that you pray for and that you look towards great success?
So Maria, the wife, she's the foundation of the family. She she's held the house together. She's been dad, she's been mom. Both boys were born when I was deployed. So, never here. She swears up and down that I'd get her pregnant and then I would go volunteer deploy somewhere so I wouldn't have to be here. And then I have a daughter by my first marriage that she's also, she watches out for and everything. And, she works there in Huntsville now. My daughter does at North Grumman, I think. And so she's definitely the center focus that we all gravitate to in the family. And then my oldest son is at Fort Benning in the infantry officer course, basic course right now.
Yeah.
Yeah. No, I told him not to go infantry.
So why would you tell him not to go infantry, right? Is that what he wanted to do?
Yeah, since since OIF kicked off, he was at home, he was 6, watching the news, wanted to know what the hell was going on in the world and everything else. And since he's been like 6 years old, that's what he said he was going to do. And then he got an ROTC scholarship there at Oklahoma State when we were at Fort Sill. Troy Butcher was the senior officer there at the time. And so, he did really good his senior year. He ended up graduating and getting their highest leadership award there and took off. And, everybody still stays in touch with him, and so he's just done a great job. And then
Yay.
my youngest one's here. He's going to start at UTSA in a cyber program here come the next semester there in August. So, they're kind of all over the place. The kids are, and she's still the center focus that holds us all together and everything. So, and then, she's my best friend. We literally work 5 feet from each other, pretty much more than 5 feet, I guess. Maybe 10. She
Right,
works
right.
in a different. She works in a different office than me, but an opportunity came along, and it was kind of hard to pass it up.
So that's awesome. So y'all actually like work, not like you work alongside each other, not for each other, right?
Yeah, yeah, yeah. So she worked. Well, we both work for the director now. When it first started out, she worked directly for the director, and I worked directly for the deputy director. And the director retired, and so the deputy became the director. So now he's both our bosses, but her former boss is coming back, and so she'll be the director, but still be both our bosses, I guess, because mine's going to retire, and I'm going to kind of pick up part of his duties. But yeah, I mean, we ride to work together in San Antonio. The traffic is the most horrible thing in the world.
Oh, really?
Uh, yeah, so we bought. Let's see. So Roland Hockenberry live out on Shirts on the far northwest side or northeast side of San Antonio, and then I live on the far west south side of San Antonio. So it would be at least hour and 15 minutes from their house to my house,
Oh,
type
wow.
deal. So, and the average commute here is, if you're going anywhere, even if it's 15 minutes down the street, make sure you plan 30.
Right.
Yeah.
Oh, but I mean, it's a gorgeous area of the country. It's got great weather. It's got great politics, all those kinds of things.
Yeah.
So tell me about, becoming a let me ask it this way. When did you realize you looked around and you had to be the adult in a situation? Do you remember that?
Um, yeah, it was probably every weekend when we were going to Juarez when I was there, when I was a young Joe.
So basically, when you were looked around, and you're like, I better take charge of these crazies, or we'll all end up in doggone jail.
Yeah, we had this one dude. Mark was his first name. I won't put his name out, and he's not in the army anymore. But he came into the army because he pretty much had to. It was part of his. Um, he had inherited a bunch of money, but he had to check some blocks before he got that money from his family.
Right.
Um, and so we used to go down to the Electric Q Thursday, Friday, Saturday night and party. And this joker, he got so good at doing this, the bartender went out and bought a pillow for him. That's how much we went to the Electric Q. Is the bartender knew us, and this dude would drink so much he would pass out, and the bartender would just pick his head up and stick a pillow underneath him, then let him lay there on the bar while the rest of us was partying or whatever. But when you come back across the border in the United States and the dude won't answer, Border Patrol wasn't too friendly, even though we were a bunch of GIs coming back across, and he's like, hey, he's got to say something. So, yeah, that's probably when I realized, hey, I got to start making some smart choices here. So,
Oh, I love it. I love it. Going over to Juarez was like crossing the devil's line or something. It was like a different world over there. And you knew that if you got caught up in some mess, right? Did you ever get caught up in some mess somewhere that you were like, oh crap? Not just Juarez, but anywhere in your life you were like, oh, I done messed up here.
Well, I got in a fight in Juarez in there was a club there. This is off the downtown, off the strip in Juarez. And I got in a fight in the club there, and I grabbed a dude on the dance floor, and he was just being a schmuck, I guess is a good way of putting it. And so he started acting like a jackass. So I threw him off the dance floor, and he went across a couple of tables and knocked a bunch of shit over. And the house lights come on, and I'm standing there, and all of a sudden I'm like the only one standing, close person like 20 feet near me, left me hanging out in the wind there. I'm like, okay, yeah. So I thought I was going to have some interesting times there, but
So what
luckily,
happened? What happened?
luckily I knew the girl. I knew the girl. Her parents owned the club, so it was kind of swept under. Here you go. He got escorted out, and I got to stay. So.
Hey, look, Sergeant Majors. He reminded me of the cave and the Kentucky Derby down in Juarez. He's giving us hangout spots over here. So,
Yeah. Matter of fact, it was right next to the cave. The club right next to the cave. I don't remember the name of it, but yeah. So they were both the cave, and this club was owned by the same family.
Oh boy.
So.
Oh my gosh, so much fun, so much fun. We're hanging out here with Command Sergeant Major Tom Eagan. Thanks, Sergeant Major, for hanging out with us. I really appreciate it. I want to take an opportunity, if y'all don't mind, and I just want to share a little bit about where this came from and, what's this about. It really came about from Sergeant Maggot. He was a buddy of mine, a jumpmaster buddy. He got a tumor. He couldn't remember yesterday, but he could remember the old days. And so I called him up and I interviewed him, and we interviewed him and Sergeant Major Adams and Bishop Chris Parker and Craig Evans and several others. But it just kind of fell to the wayside. And then last year, in January 2021, Sergeant Mason got sick. We found out he was in hospice and he had throat cancer and he couldn't even talk. And I was just devastated that I hadn't got an opportunity to talk with him. He was a soldier of mine that I spent 3 years with. And so Joe Benson and I, here's a picture of Joe. There's Joe. And he came up with the coin and the box and the T-shirts and stuff, and basically we put together this program where we're talking to guys, like you, Sergeant Major, about your stories and your history and your what we're trying to do is to find a way to capture your memories for your own family. G-Man says it might be the Copacabana. Was that the place? Anyway, the idea, Sergeant Major, is to tell these stories and to get this stuff out. And so, it'll be great to hear your stories and continue to hear more, not only about the fight down in Juarez, but, but all of it, right? So tell me about, going to those leadership schools, right? It was PNOC and PLDC and those kinds of things. Do you remember going to those schools?
Oh yeah. I mean, I think everybody remembers at some point in their career that they're all significant emotional events for you somehow. So PLDC, the old, it was at Fort Hood, and I was a specialist when I went. And again, I thought it was. It was something that I wanted. I wanted to learn. I wanted to be the best. So I excelled up until the end. We came back in out of the field, and I was in a leadership position there. I was a student first sergeant, and we came back in out of the field, and the instructors, it was muddy as hell and raining our whole time we was out there. Like we were standing around fire barrels trying to dry our stuff out the whole time. And, they was out there playing around in the Humvees doing donuts and all kinds, doing shit NCOs do. And they wanted us to wash them. And I was like, this is bullshit. You guys are out here doing it yourself, and then you want me to clean something that you were out there. And so, yeah, I got fired. So that was PLDC. So not keeping my mouth shut started at an early age. And then BNOC was there at Fort Bliss on the Hill. And that's when we still had equipment training in BNOC. Yeah. And so there I got the leadership award for the course, which was totally a shock to me because I had no clue what was going on. That I was going to get something like that, I guess is the best way to put it.
Right.
And so, the equipment, I thrived on being able to learn the equipment, but then, one of the biggest things you go to school and you know more than an instructor type deal.
Right.
Yeah. So, that kind of, I was like, man, is these schools really going to be that way? And then ANOC was there. Luther Harris was in my class with me.
Oh, cool.
Curtis Hobson was there. I'm trying to think who else. There was a bunch of guys that was in the class with us. Rod Beach was one of the instructors, I think. Yeah, he was one of the instructors then. So that, by that time I was just kind of in the flow, trying to stay out of the eye of people and just kind of get through. And a lot of writing. I remember that was an emotional event for me, was putting words on paper and trying to make sure I was doing the right thing and all that. So, and then let's see, Sergeant Major's Academy. Of course, we all know that's at Fort Bliss. That was a good experience, getting to meet other people and see other branches and deal with a lot of people. I'm still friends with a couple of guys from the course and everything. And I made friends with a couple of SF guys and everything else like that. So that was kind of more my personality type people, was to be around them. So, but of course, big names like Wiggins and Pickney were classmates of mine. So I can't forget that. Wiggins and I went, we've known each other for a while. Pickney was the brigade CSM when I was a battalion CSM. So there was a lot of us right there in that class that, we're the old dudes of the branch for a while after the Wilbur Adams and Rogers. And so.
Who is it that mentored you? Do you remember having a mentor when you were a young soldier, or maybe,
So Tim McCain, he was the first sergeant when I was there in Hawk with John Rossi. I had got an early drop, and I was like, oh shit, what am I going to do? Because back then it was like, okay, you're in ETS, we're going to give you 90-day drops or something. Something just came up. Let me give you a sec. Something just came up on my computer here, blocking everything. So he kind of said, hey, come with me to Fort Hood. I'll make you an NCO and kind of mentor you and do some things. Al McDavid was the battalion commander. And then, a lot of people from the Fort Hood days heard about the days with Colonel Kurtz when he was the brigade commander there. And then Tim McCain left, and then I was at a battalion formation, and a new guy by the name of Bobby Brown came out in front of his platoon, and he was just knocking the sparks off their ass out there in front of everybody in front of the formation. And, we're talking about, this is in the 80s now, so it was a little bit different. And so I was like, man, this guy. So I kind of, if I be half of what Bobby Brown is, half the NCO he is, I'll be doing good.
Amen.
And so, I kind of followed him, and then Bruce Likens and Steve Rogers took me underneath their wing. I was a E7 first sergeant underneath those guys. So I've just been blessed throughout my career that I've had different guys along the way to do it. And then let's see, SMDC, Jim Ross, he and I were platoon sergeants together. When I was at the Space Brigade, he was at SMDC. And of course, I replaced him at the Space Brigade, and he went to 32nd and then went over there. And, he just gave me so much freedom. I'd call him and say, damn, either I'm that bad that you don't want to deal with me, or either I'm doing okay that you don't want to talk to me. So, Wiggins, Pickney, Carr. I've been lucky that I've worked with a lot of guys that has allowed me to put a lot of tools into the tool bag and go on.
Yeah. It's we were surrounded by legends, right? If you just kind of looked around, you really had to fall hard to fail. You really did, because nobody, I remember being a young first sergeant and Command Sergeant Major Parker refusing to allow me to fail, right? He said, I was being stupid, and he was like, no, Marshall, you're not failing. And he helped me. I didn't get it at the time, but we never get it at the time, right? Well, all of us, we look back on it, Was there a time when you found yourself like out on the edge of the diving board about to jump in the deep end with no water?
I think a lot, you never know. I think part of that was when I was a sergeant first class and I was a first sergeant there in 11th Brigade. I had 552. So I was in 552, and then I went to 443, and I was listening to you and Heather, and I think you guys were over in 552 just as I was leaving 443, or I know Parker was the CSM for a while when I was over there. But when I was there, and actually started in Echo, I came in, I'd just been on a TAF team in Saudi Arabia, came back, and Bomberg was the brigade commander. Romanowski was the brigade CSM. And he told me straight up, he's seen all these sevens. Hey, I'm going to send you to the worst battery in Fort Bliss. Yeah. So, he had known me when he was a battalion CSM. I was one of his platoon sergeants when he was a battalion CSM. And, that's the situation you want, because there's no place to go up. You go up. And so we went to field, and we had this platoon leader, and all the guys are like, hey, you're going to go to Foxy's with us when we get out? When we get back in out of the field? I'm like, no, why? Well, the platoon leader is stripping down there. I was like, you guys got to be shitting me. So everybody in the platoon had seen this chick totally naked. And so, yeah, swear to God, truth. Can't make that stuff up.
Oh my God. So, that's funny.
Yeah. Yeah, it wasn't funny at the time because I was like, what the hell did I get into?
Wow. So, it's interesting. I had a lieutenant who had a spouse who was stripping, and they were an OBC student, and so all the other OBC students were proclaiming whether they had been classmate qualified or not, as to whether they had been down to see their classmate's wife at the stripper bar.
Yeah.
Not fun. Fun. So, tell me about, somebody that you're proud of, somebody maybe that you mentored.
There's so many. Mark Dominic would be one. Scott Askew that retired. I think Scott mentored me more than I did him in the end. He's retired now. He's just such a happy person to be around. You got Ernie Thornell that he's retired now. Jeffrey Johnson. There's a lot of guys that, the whole thing is like everybody talks about, be the weakest link and be around all the smart guys. And, I was lucky to be able to do a lot of that. Craig might have helped me do some of that because he knew I needed a lot of help, but,
Wow.
I just, I don't know. I used to say my whole thing was if I could make a difference in one person's life a year, every year, those 32 years, whatever, was worth every minute of it. that broken down body, whatever it may be, just being able to make a difference in somebody's life, whether that be, career wise or personal, just however you can impact them. So that was kind of my whole thing behind, that kept me drive with the people. And I guess one of the things I didn't like is the farther you went up the chain, and over time we saw a change that I spent more times in meetings or on damn email than I did out with the soldiers. Um, and thankfully Maria was supportive. She knew that if I called her and told her I was on my way home, she knew I still had to walk past the staff duty. I used that as an opportunity. 30, 45 minutes later, I'm still talking to the staff duty, asking them or what are they going to school? What are they reading? Type deal.
Isn't it neat how a command sergeant? So if you're a young staff sergeant and you've got staff duty, you realize that all of a sudden you're a target of opportunity, and so it's really interesting when a command sergeant major takes the time to mentor you and talk to you while you're sitting there. But when you're a staff sergeant, you don't get it, right? You're
Yeah.
like, he's gonna drive. Oh no, the world's gonna
Yeah.
end. Sergeant major's gonna attack
Yeah.
me or whatever, right?
Here comes the old man down the steps.
Yeah.
So there at 30th Brigade, we had Dave Samples. He was on the first floor and we were upstairs, but everybody in the brigade thought Dave and I was related because our voices sounded so much alike. And the staff duties would be like, holy shit, the sergeant major's already in the building. It'd be Dave Samples in there in his office talking, and they think I would be in there, and I got past them somehow or something. So
You definitely have a big, big booming voice. Did you ever find a time when that was advantageous or maybe a disadvantage?
I think both. We talked about the different generation, Hawk being hoo-hoo, very aggressive, in your face.
Oh yeah.
And so it definitely played advantage during those years. And one of the things, I was the first sergeant, Bobby Brown was the 11th Brigade CSM. And I'm like, he came out of sergeant's time, and my damn motor sergeant, he jacked up sergeant time so bad. I'm thinking about Bobby from the old days. I'm just thinking, I'm going to get knocked out the frame.
Stacked up.
Yeah. And, afterwards he pulled me off to the side and he was all mellow. And I'm like, what the hell? Are you feeling all right? He's like, hey, Tom, you're going to realize when you go up through the ranks, you gotta mellow out a little bit more, because when you say something, people take it a little bit differently and everything.
Hey, that's a great lesson, right? Because a lot of us get, power hungry. I know as I was a young sergeant, you test that power. Was there a time you tested the power a little bit too much or turned the wrench a little bit too far?
I think every rank I probably did that. I was definitely power hungry as a young sergeant because, and I swear to this day that this is why I had so many damn weight issues was, I was physically fit. I was doing PT. I was running the overweight program. I was running the remedial PT program. And we had a sergeant first class, and it's like, hey, dude, you can't be this. And, he felt tape all the damn time. And so I just run his ass in the ground every day. It didn't matter if it was remedial PT or whatever. And then I just, and I was a handful for my NCOs that I worked for. Every NCO, I probably owed them an apology. I did apologize to Pickney because I was a pain in his ass.
I can just see him getting frustrated with you, right?
Yeah. He did really good. He never lost his patience with me. But I know I pushed the buttons a lot.
So tell me a time you pushed his buttons. You got to tell me. So tell me just one time.
Oh, just, because I'd been in the schoolhouse so long and everything, and I was going back and forth to Fort Jackson and helped write the whole work on the new tweaking the whole AIT platoon sergeant stuff. So I was just like, nobody can tell me shit about this place because, I'm the one that's helped writing the regs. So it was a different mentality. I'd been there and was um, trying to focus on the way that the Army was visioning this to go, and people, we kind of was passing. And it was later, Steve Rogers, he had told me, he's like, hey, the issue people you run into is you're thinking 5 to 10 years down the road, and that's the way you train, that's the way you do things, and you're not on the same sheet with everybody else because you're literally thinking so far down the road that it causes issues. And I think that that stood out with me a long time. Probably the last, ever since I was a CSM, when he had talked to me about it. And so, those, when he brought that up, it just makes me think of how many run-ins I had with senior leaders. I know there was a section sergeant in Hawk. I run that dude rugged because I always, it's like, let's go, let's go, let's go. So yeah, no, I probably wasn't the best guy to have. I was, a dude to keep in a glass jar in a case of war, break and let out type deal.
Right. There's a lot of us that say that, right? They're like, because there was a certain amount of time in my life, looking back on it, it was like the testosterone had my mind I was just going to war like you're talking about. It was like only at a certain age can you kind of look back on it and go, wow, I wasn't thinking quite as clearly maybe as I thought I was at the time. And of course, I'm always 10 times more mature tomorrow than I was today, right?
Oh, yeah.
It goes up exponentially every day. I'm 10 times smarter today than I was yesterday.
Yeah.
That's
for sure.
Share with me about a memorial service or a time where there was loss.
Man, there's been a couple of them throughout my career, and just a very emotional person that I just kept pent up for so many years inside. I was the battalion CSM when the female private was shot there at Fort Bliss in the PX. She was one of mine. Then I can think back to Fort Hood when one of my soldiers, him and a buddy, was out drinking, and he let his buddy drive the motorcycle, and they totaled the motorcycle. And of course, drinking and driving motorcycles around Fort Hood country roads don't end very well. So I always tried to stay in the background of that because it was always so emotional for me. And then when General Rossi's there at Fort Sill, it just took a different. It was because I'd known him for so long, and it took a hard toll on me. That one did, and so emotionally, that was pretty hard for me to deal with. So throughout my career, there's just been those different stops that I think that most of us that's been around any time that you've had to deal with a memorial service that, as a first sergeant, what is the hardest duty you have to do and the most hated but honorable duty that you have to do? And that's roll call. And so for me to get up and do roll call in front of an audience was just unbearable. And so that, although, it should be a privilege to do something like that to honor a person, but it was just an emotional toll on me that it just drained me, I guess is the best way to put it. So.
Right. I was participant. I called roll 3 times in my military career, and it's, golly, it is a tough thing. And thanks for, standing in the gap, right? Thanks so much for standing in the gap and doing your duty, even when it's tough. I was calling roll in tears, and you do what you got to do, and you stand strong. And there's something about Army ceremonies, right? Were you like, I used to hate ceremonies up until a certain point, and then all of a sudden you begin to see them from a different point of view, and you realize I'm proud to have stood in that formation, and I'm proud to have passed that guide on. Was there ever a time for you that you wanted to be in a ceremony?
I don't know if I'd say, you know, time I wanted to be in them, but a lot of people considered me a dinosaur when I retired because, there's a lot of traditions that I think that we got away from, and ceremonies are part of that. But there's just so much shit on the calendar that now we're shortening ceremonies however we can. Still to this day, I go to a ceremony, my son's first salute or whatever, got extremely emotional with that. So it's still, I'm not going to lie. I don't miss the days of the CSMs passing me the flyer with the written comments on it about how my unit was. And as a matter of fact, my wife tells the story to a lot of people because, we work with the Air Force. So I work at Lackland. And so she tells them the story that General Rossi's change of command, he wasn't going to be able to make it to my change of responsibility because he had to go ahead to Huntsville. And he'd give me a coin. And then in the same sentence, he started chewing my ass about I had a guy that in the front row that didn't shave that morning.
Oh, no.
I'm like, you're driving on a Humvee through the change of command and you notice the guy in the front row. I'm like, okay, yeah, that's the Rossi that I know. He and I stood on parade fields at Fort Hood with fixed bayonets.
Right, yeah.
And jokers fell out with fixed bayonets. Medics had a different line of duty going on. So ceremonies are something that important that drives discipline. But I think it's also something that we've gotten away from that we can feel proud of. I was watching the photos go by, and you brought up the one there with John Young and I changing my last change of responsibility. And that was rough because I knew it was the last time I was ever going to stand in front of troops. But, it was one of the best moments for me because, it was there with great leaders. Drake was, he's the one that passed the sword. And so, I've been lucky to work with so many great people that really just made me successful. I was kind of more like the doorstopper, the speed bump in the way. So.
Oh, no, not at all. Not at all. Not at all. Tell me, like, if you had to go back and do one job again or live 1 year over or some certain deployment, is there some place that you would like to go back to, either because you want to or maybe to do it again or just to enjoy it? I mean, I don't know. Is there anything like that?
Obviously I'd like to go back and do a lot of things differently. I guess my fear of failure, I wished I could have identified that earlier on in my career so I could have probably dealt with things a little bit differently. Because laying in bed at nighttime with a pad and paper and pencil next to your bed, writing stuff down in the middle of the night because you wake up thinking about stuff or worrying about stuff for 2-3 weeks after the fact. Probably not the healthiest thing in the world in some cases. In other cases, probably yes, but the anxiety of that fear of failure, it drove me to be somebody that I didn't particularly care for over those last years of my career. I felt that I could have done more if I would have been able to identify that, because once I identified it and started getting some help, I was able to identify it in other people. And I'm like, damn, I see every one of the telltale signs. And so I just wish that, those signs probably for me, I started seeing them in late staff sergeant, sergeant first class early years of when that anxiety was really starting to come out. So that would probably be the one major thing. But we're talking about two different armies. That stigma being mental health versus where we're at today is two different things. So, but that would be the one thing that I'd do over again.
Can you do me a favor, maybe, and share some of those signs and symptoms that are common to what you're talking about, and how we might recognize them? Look, I have a fear of failure. I don't want to fail anything, right? I don't know that I've failed anything in my life except for that piss test that one time.
Yeah. So, I mean, and so a lot of the shrinks will tell you that I guess, most leaders in the military probably have some type of form of anxiety because that's what makes you so driven. But, I just always being exhausted. And especially when you add depression or, we don't live the best lifestyles in the military. We don't eat very healthy. We come home 8, 9 o'clock at night and we're eating dinner and going to bed or whatever. So when you start compounding all that together, you just see different things: exhausted, or not going down the right path, or alcohol abuse, or and just kind of the way people talk about different things. I guess it's a little bit hard to explain now that I've been put on the spot about it. But the biggest thing for me was always being exhausted in my weight. And, I'm just a big boy the way it is, but, I'd come in on a Monday morning and the CSM would go, "Hey, you gained weight this weekend." I'd be like, "What the fuck?" And sure enough, I'd go home after PT and get on the scales. I gained 2 pounds. And I'm like, how the hell is this guy? My belly moved for 2 pounds. I'm a big dude, but damn.
Look, let me interrupt here. It is wild to think about how focused we were on AR 600-9. There was a time in the 90s, man, it was like they were just looking for a reason to mess with you. Right? I mean, It was almost like there's a drawdown going on and we need an excuse to get anybody out. And right?
Yeah, no, you're absolutely right. Yeah. Luckily in the 90s, I wasn't too big back then, but it was starting to show. So,
oh my. Yeah. So it's interesting to think about the dilemma all the time of that pressure, right? And my partner Joe Benson said he had to have the same issues, so absolutely. Yeah. So what is it, looking back on the Army, that you think you miss the most? Like me, I'm going to tell you, I miss running up and down the road together singing cadence. I really miss that. Is there something that you miss?
Well, I mean, it's all that. My generation, like when I was the section chief there at Fort Hood, I'd have parties at my apartment and everybody in the section would come over and other sections would come over, and we had this close knit, tight group. Now I think in the late 90s, when I came back from the TAF team, I started noticing that was kind of fading away. But I agree with you. Those things that we did at a group that we could enjoy. Now, as I got older, them damn runs became painful and something I dreaded. But the people definitely, and I talk about Scott Askew and Ernie Thornell. Ernie and Scott both, especially Ernie Thornell, he calls me very regular to check on me to see how I'm doing. And then Scott, he comes in and out of San Antonio for business occasionally or something like that. But being around somebody like him or Jeffrey Johnson, Carl Patty was there at the same time. You've seen him in one of the videos. Being around those guys that were just so positive, it made such a difference on me. Those are the type of people that they help you and make you a better person. So doing the runs, like the trail runs that I was doing there at 30th, or the runs like you're talking about, just those moments where you can bond together and be that team. So,
Oh, amen, amen. So, what is it that like if we started and like the Russians showed up today or something, we had to fight today. What job would you sign up to do? Is there something in the part of the defense that you'd volunteer for?
well, I would tell you, I would come out of retirement to go back to the Space Brigade. I absolutely love that place. Best job. And of course, I don't know about you, but I didn't know anything about damn Space Brigade until I got selected to go to the Space Brigade. Um, and I think most of us were like that you have no clue that an air defender went out to the Army Space Brigade. But it was the best assignment. But now hey, sign me up. I'd be one of the ones running through the door. The biggest armed force in the world is the American citizens. We're armed more than most of the other nations and everything. So it is a little concerning that surveys are showing that 50 to 60% of the population will exit the country instead of staying and fighting. But yeah, no, I'd definitely be in the fight, get back in the fight however I could. So.
Oh wow, so many. Is there something that as you look back over, you enjoyed being part of the Space Brigade? Is there a particular thing or an event or an award or a time or a team that you're particularly proud of in your time in service? You did what, 32 years? Is that it?
Yeah. Yeah, it was 31 and 8 months or something like that.
Wow.
They're just, like I was saying earlier, I was blessed to be able to move people around. They helped me. I was one of those sergeant majors. When Chad McNish was there too, I watched him the other day. He was talking about Greer and Richmond there at Fort Bliss in the days. When I was a platoon sergeant and I came into Patriot and I became a platoon sergeant there, we would win all the launcher competitions and everything else. And so, definitely then. And then just, that organizations were successful during the time period that you're there. I think, you have to take credit for the good and the bad and the ugly of why it's there.
Amen to that.
I had when I was the first sergeant there in 443 Alpha, we went like 3.5 years without a DWI, any drug incidents, we didn't have any stupidity go on. We were a tight-knit group and things went smooth. And from the commander all the way down to the lowest ranking person in the organization, we just didn't tolerate any stupidity. So, that's the time that you can sit back and, it's nice to go and go home not knowing that you're not going to get a phone call. Because when I first got sent over there, my wife still jokes about this a little bit. I got called to a domestic, and while I'm out at that domestic, the staff duty calls the house again. This is before cell phones, and talks about, hey, we need first sergeant. There's a domestic, and she's like, well, he's already been called. He's going there. So I had 2 domestics in one night. And she was not a happy camper because she thought I was out running the streets. But it got to the point in this unit that the El Paso PD had my home phone number. So they wouldn't even call the liaison there or the MP station. They would call me directly. Yeah, so I had a kid that got arrested. I call him a kid. He was older, but he was one of those specialists that was like 36 or something. And so they called me, and they're like, hey, Top, you come down here and get him. We won't do anything. So I get down to the police station. Well, what did he get arrested for? Well, he's public intoxication. The cops that arrested him, one of them was like 6'4". His partner was a female, and so he started talking about Jolly Green Giant and Sprout. And so he got a little Blue Ridge with them, and so they go to the back to get him, and they come back out and they didn't have him. I'm like, where's he at? And you're like, his exact words is, the first arm's out there. Fuck that. I'm not coming out there. So, is that a good moment to be proud of, or is that, damn, I was that bad?
You're such a loving leader.
Yeah.
He was afraid of that tough love.
Yeah. And so I was like, well, can I go back there and get him? And they're like, yeah. So they took me back there. And of course, everybody in the cell's like, the hell's the deal with this guy? He won't leave jail because somebody's here to pick him up. I just
afraid of his first arm. Amen. Amen. Joe Benson's over here on Twitch. We're on Twitch, everybody. If you know anything about Twitch, we're on Twitch also. It's weird being on like newfangled stuff. It's like, I don't even know. So we're on Twitter. Go Elon. We're on Twitch. We're on Facebook. We're on YouTube. Most of our visitors are on YouTube, but most of our watchers are on Facebook. But this isn't for a live show. That's not what this is about. We didn't start this for that. We started it to be able to tell these stories. It just made sense more and more to end up doing something live, because if somebody's going to watch it, you might as well, do it live. Tell me, if you don't mind, a little bit. I know that Benson approached you and asked you to do it, and you were like, I don't know about all that.
Yeah.
Tell me, if you don't mind, a little bit about your exploration of this project, and give me a little bit of feedback, if you don't mind, about what you see's happening, and just tell me what you think, if you don't mind.
So this is probably gonna. So I greatly applaud you and Joe doing this, because I know your wives are probably getting a little concerned about the pocketbooks right about now. Believe it or not, Maggot actually came to see me there at 30th. And man, he was riding my ass about taking care of myself. And I'm almost positive it was during the same visit when he was there with Tony Wino, that, when all this started. And so he had came in a couple of days before, and he would just sit down in the office. He came in and plopped down and said, hey man, what's going on? And then so he was really telling me, hey, you got to start taking care of yourself, and doing this and this. And then Wino was up there talking to me and the boss when he got the phone call. So when you look at it from that perspective, him being such, you talk about legends in our branch, and what took place, just hearing stories from guys like him or Wilbur Adams. I listened to Heather, Joe Stout. Typically what I do when I'm at work, I try to put you guys on and listen to your show after now, especially with people that I know to kind of see and everything else. But I think it's great that you're doing that, and it kind of brings our community back together. And I see some of the guys. I don't have my glasses on, okay, so I can't see anything anybody's writing and typing up. But some of those people that are watching weigh in and bring up old memories to talk about stuff and everything like that. You don't get an opportunity to do that very often. And for me, I'm a little bit of a private guy, but I like this, but it's not for me. Let's get everybody else to do it. Let me push some people underneath the bus and let them do it.
Right. There you go.
So, and I know I was a hit or miss guy, that you either loved me or you hated me. So, that's, I'd rather see you guys get out there that your audience loves guys that you're talking to and everything else. And, but yeah, there's got to be a way that you guys can continue this without emptying your pocketbooks.
So, we appreciate it. We definitely appreciate it. Speaking of that, if you want to buy a t-shirt or a sweatshirt, you can go to the link there I provided. And we appreciate it. All that money goes to Joe and I directly. We split it 50-50. and then there, if you'd like to send a send a donation, there's the link. Also, it goes through Streamlabs and into our PayPal account that we utilize, Joe and I, for all of our donations and everything that we work out of. This is a labor of love between Joe Benson and I. Joe was a soldier of mine. He was when I was a young first sergeant and got my first line battery in a Patriot. He was one of my first privates, and he showed up with a lot of potential. And I groomed him and took care of him, and he groomed me and took care of me. Right, that's what we do. And he was a wonderful soldier. He's the my ComSec clerk, and the stuff that would keep me in jail, put us in jail. That's what Joe took care of, right?
Yeah.
And so
I'm sure he could tell some stories on both of us.
Yeah. Well, he's like, you gotta get Sergeant Major Eagan. You gotta get Sergeant Major Eagan. He is a big, huge fan of yours and loves you. You were a big mentor to him, and he talks about you and how you took care of him a couple times there in the schoolhouse, and he appreciates that very much. So, yeah, one of the things that we do is, and I would love to begin to kind of close this out. If we've got any stories maybe that you haven't told. And one of the things I like to think about, one is think about calling, maybe one of your old fictional units to attention and then signing out it's amazing hearing an old Sergeant Major's voice calling this unit to attention. And the other is, some parting thoughts, words of wisdom from the old Command Sergeant Major to, I don't know, maybe it's to yourself in 20 years, maybe it's to your future grandkids and folks that come below, maybe it's to, I don't know who your message might be to, but those are kind of some thoughts, and I'll leave you the last word.
Just over the years, you're going to come across a lot of people. And you're going to learn something from everybody. And, that may be something to do, something not to do, but, keep in touch with the right people and, keep people close to you over the years. Because one of the things that stands true to this day is when you leave that parade field, only people that's going to be standing there is your family. And so, your family has to be part of this. I sacrificed a lot of my family throughout the years, which is a huge regret. So people in your family, keep them close to you and keep your family there all the time and spend as much time with them and take care of them. That would be my thing is the family and take care of them. And put them in the forefront of your life, because when you leave the parade field, it's you and your family. And then you got those that you will stay in touch with over the years. And so I guess that's the best advice I could give as far as an old fart goes.
Amen. I agree. So how about calling that unit to attention and give us a good hand salute and sign out? What do you think about that, Sergeant Major?
Yeah, no, I seen you do that with Chad McNish. I didn't see you, Joe and Heather, so I was like,
oh yeah.
I don't even know if I can remember how to do that. It's been so long.
You can do it.
Now, you don't know if I'm sitting here in my chonies though.
Oh no, you can stay seated. That's fine. You can stay seated. It's okay.
Yeah, no,
it's okay.
I got a pair of shorts on. I'm just joking, man. So, it's been a long time. I was ready for retirement when I did. So, but they took care of me and gave me that little downtime. So we'll see if I can still do this or not. Battery attention. Outlaw 7 signing out.
Oh, I love it. Thanks, Sergeant Major. I sure do appreciate it. Absolutely.
Nah, thanks for having me, guys. I appreciate it.
Oh, heck yeah. Let's close out with the slideshow here.
Is it alright if I stay today? Is it alright if I stay today? take my time, far behind, leave my pride. Oh, is it alright if I stay? Is it alright if we just stay today? Is it alright? 'Cause I wish we could just stay. Take our time, far behind, leave our pride. Oh, is it alright if we stay? Is it alright if I decide but change my mind? Is that okay? Is it alright if I don't wanna feel
A lot of sweat
anyway?
involved in preparing for those things, right?
Yeah. Some of those pictures are from Pikes Peak when we was there. Space Brigade does Pikes Peak every year.
Right.
That's a hell of a 14 miles up. So we did a lot of those pictures in the mountains. Was a lot of the train ups for that. So
Oh, that's great. It's great. Well, thanks, Sergeant Major. I sure enjoyed it. We'll leave it with the adventures of a lifetime.
all right, appreciate it. Have a good night, man.